This video is section 12.3 and geometric sequences. Now I know it says series. We're not actually going to get into series this year. So it's just geometric sequences. Now last video we talked about arithmetic sequences. And arithmetic sequences had something that we commonly added or subtracted. So geometric sequences are the same thing. It's still a list of numbers. It's still a list of numbers with a term. This is the first term. And so sometimes they'll just write it as A, but that would be the first term. So in this particular problem, A sub 1 would be 2. But then each term after that is multiplied by some number. And it's always the same number in that whole sequence. And that is called the common ratio. So for example, if we look at this first problem, what would I have to multiply by 2 in order to get 8? I would multiply by 4. And then 8 times 4 would be 32. And 32 times 4 would be 128. Well, what that tells me is that the common ratio is equal to any term divided by the term before it. So if I took the nth term, which is the last term I know, 128, and I divide it by the a to the n minus 1 term, which is 32, and if I took 128 divided by 32 in this problem, I would get 4. But the fact is, it doesn't matter which n we use. We could do 32 divided by 8 or 8 divided by 2. So for this problem, the first term, it says show the sequence is geometric, meaning divide it out and prove. Then list the first term and the common ratio, which we did. So this next one, they gave me an equation, but they didn't give me a list. And I know this is an S right here, but it's a lowercase s, which means it's not sum, it just wants sequence. And the nth term is 3 to the n plus 1. So if I wanted to find a few terms so that I can find the r value, I would simply plug in, I would find a sub 1, which means plug in the 1 right there. So that would be 1 plus 1 is 2, so 3 squared is equal to 9. That means my very first number of my sequence is 9. Now, in order to find the common ratio, there's a couple things we could do. We could find the second number, which means we plug in 2 right there, and 2 plus 1 is 3. So 3 to the third power is 27. Now, once you have found two numbers, you can find the r value, because we're going to do 27, which is the second term, divided by 9, which is the one before it. Because see, it says take the term divided by the one before it. And so when you look at that, my r value is 3. But let's take a look at our problem. Where is that r value located? This is an exponent number. And remember, in exponential form, a to the x power, a was our common ratio. Well, there's our 3. It's 3 to some power. That's our common ratio. So using that concept, what do you think the common ratio will be in this problem? Now, this is not 3 times 2 all raised to the n. This is 3 times 2 to the nth power. Okay, so that what is the common ratio? It's going to be 2. Now, we're going to prove it, but I do want you to recognize that you can see it. It's a 2 right there. So a sub 1 means let's plug in 1 because they asked for the first term. And so that'd be 2 to the first power, which is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. And a sub 2, because we're going to find the next one, because we're going to do the second one divided by the one before it. That's 2 to the second power. 2 to the second power is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. And if you look, if we take the second term divided by the first term, we get our common ratio, which is still 2. Now, every once in a while, they aren't going to ask us for the first term or the r value. They're just going to give us a list, and they're going to say find the nth term. Now, remember, the nth term is any generic term. Luckily, they gave us a formula. And the formula is that the nth term is equal to the first term times the ratio raised to the n minus 1. Okay, so let's take a look. We've got 3, 2, 4 thirds, 8 ninths. How did we find the common ratio before? Well, we pick two numbers. It's really nice to use the first two. We take the second one divided by the one before it, right? Remember, it was a sub n divided by a sub n minus 1, the term we choose divided by the one before it. And we're going to get our common ratio is 2/3. Well, we also know that our first term in this list is 3. So the nth term is 3 times 2/3 to the n minus 1. And there's our nth, drew a line right through it. There's our nth term, okay? 3 times 2/3 to the n minus 1. So how would I find the ninth term? Well, if I'm finding the ninth term, I'm going to plug in a 9 everywhere there's an n. So the ninth term is equal to 3 times 2/3 to the n minus 1, which means I'm going to do 9 minus 1 is the 8th power. Now, 3 times 2/3 to the 8th power, you're absolutely encouraged to either use your power table, which would be finding 2 to the 8th and 3 to the 8th and multiplying that by 3, or you can just put this in your calculator, put it in fraction form because I want exact answers, and it's 256 over 2,187. Now it says write the recursive formula. Well, we're going to skip that because remember, we're not doing recursive formula this year. But we can find the nth term and any given term that they ask for. So that's 2/3 of your homework right there. The last part of your homework is summation again. Remember the summation? Summation of the first n terms uses one of two formulas. You can either, this is what it often looks like with a capital N, capital S. You can either plug it into your calculator, which I'm going to show you how to do that. So that uses this formula. Or you can use this basic generic formula, okay? Sometimes it's better to use this one. Sometimes it's better to use this one. We're going to show an example of when it's a good idea to use both of them. Okay. Find the sum of the first 10 terms. So I want me to find the sum of the first 10 terms. Since this is not actually written in this notation, I find that this is easier to use. We still have to have our first term, so let's find a sub 1. A sub 1 means we're going to plug a 1 right there. 3 to the first power would be just 3, okay? And we have to find our common ratio. Now remember what we said, that when we look at this right here, our common ratio in this case is also 3. Now that's a coincidence. Don't get excited. This is a coincidence that they are the same. But now we're going to use this formula. And this is equal to first term, which was a sub 1, times 1 minus r, which was 3, to the nth power, and that's a 10. And the reason it's a 10 is we're finding the first 10 terms. See how that matches right there? Divided by 1 minus 3. So we've got 3 times 1 minus 3 to the 10th. Now this is not 2 to the 10th or even negative 2 to the 10th. It's 3 to the 10th, and we're going to subtract that from 1 all over 1 minus 3. Now, at that point, I would absolutely pick up my calculator, type in the value exactly as it looks right here. I would even use fraction format just in case my answer is a fraction, and you will find that you get 88,572. Okay, so if I wrote all the terms out, if I wrote a sub 1, a sub 2, all the way out to a sub 10, and I added them up, I would get 88,572. Now, why does it get so big? Because remember, we're multiplying. We're multiplying each number times 3. So we take each number, we would multiply times 3, and then we would find the next one would be times 3, which is 27, and we would be, all these numbers get bigger very, very quickly. Now, when they do give us something like this, you can do the same thing. You can use the formula, or if it's given in this notation, which I love, you are going to put this directly into your calculator, okay? And the way that you're going to do this is you're going to pick up your calculator and you're going to go to Math, and you're going to arrow up 3 times. and you're going to see something called summation. Okay, and that's what we're going to use. So let me turn on my calculator and show you what I'm talking about. Right here on the blank screen, I hit the math button. There's the math button. I'm going to hit the up arrow 3 times. You see right there, summation. And when I push enter, it gives me what looks like right there. Now, this is the letter K. I don't want to have to find the letter K, so I'm just going to put in X, and it jumps straight to the next blank. And I'm going to put in 1, and then I'm going to right arrow, and I'm going to put in 15 on top. Okay, so you can see the left side of that right there. Now, this is where this gets tricky. In the calculator, it opened parentheses. It is putting all of this inside of parentheses. So you've got this on your screen, okay? And you put in X equals 1, and then you put 15 up here, and it opened parentheses for you. We're going to write all of that inside parentheses like this. Do not forget that you have to open another parentheses when you get to this, okay? So we're going to type that in, use fraction 1/3 times, and I'm going to open another parentheses, fraction 1/3, oops, sorry, that's 1/2, let's do 1/3, close parentheses, caret here, X minus 1. Please notice that X minus 1 has to be inside that final close parentheses, or it will give you the wrong answer. So let's push enter. And if I don't like that, it didn't give it to me as a fraction. And the reason it didn't give it to me as a fraction is this is a particularly nasty number. So if I wanted to do math fraction, it'll take the answer and turn it into a fraction. But because it's such a nasty number, it actually doesn't. So we're just going to write that this is approximately 0.5. Okay? We will always use a calculator if we see this. I just want to show you again one more time how to get there. We would do math, up arrow 3 times, enter. Now we have summation. X equals 1 to 15. I'm just going to show you again what happens if you don't put this in parentheses. So if we do alpha fraction 1/3 times alpha fraction 1/3, and we go out here and put caret X minus 1. And I'm showing you this is different, and this is actually wrong. And look at what I get, a different answer. That is a very different answer than 1/2. So please make sure when you're putting it in that you put an extra set of parentheses in here around that 1/3. So we're going to insert a parentheses, close that parentheses right there, and now caret X minus 1. We want to make sure that that is inside the parentheses just like it was here, okay? And we hit enter, and now we're back to 0.5. That's all of our lesson. That's the last lesson of the year. Good luck. See me if you have any problems with your homework.